Little Locked On crossover action. Now we're joined by Isaac Shade, host of Locked On Tar Heels. And Isaac, I want to talk about North Carolina Tar Heel transfer. Eugene
Walker Kessler.
We can talk about Walker Kessler. Gosh, I hope he's sticking around. I hope he comes back. No, I don't think he's going to.
Boy, that was a terrible performance in the second round there last weekend.
Thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Tar Heels are dancing. Kessler sitting at home. What's up?
Buddy. Okay. All right.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
War Eagle. Let's go. I'm so sorry.
Take care of sweet Gene Chizik for us. So, Eugene Asante, a guy that I didn't know a whole lot. And then, when he announced that he was coming here, found as much of his tape as I could. It seemed like he played a lot more earlier in the season last year than later. It didn't really seem like he got hurt too much. What's going on? What's the story here for Eugene Asante?
Great question. So let me just take us back just a little bit. Mack Brown comes back to North Carolina, right? Late 2018, he gets the job. 2019 is going to be his first fall back in Chapel Hill. When Mack Brown came to Carolina, he had two priorities, one on each side of the ball. The first of them's a little guy you might have heard of named Sam Howell. Yeah, right? Whatever. He's not going to be a first-round draft pick. It doesn't make sense. The other is a little linebacker named Eugene Asante. Those were Mack Brown's two priorities coming. Asante was thought well of coming out of high school. Interestingly, most of his high school career was a running back, transitioned to being a linebacker then his senior year, and that's when it all blew up for him. He started getting all the recruiting. Everybody's coming in and doing all that. So he gets to Carolina, ultimately is blocked. His path to playing time is blocked by another converted offensive player in Chaz Surratt, who is now a Minnesota Viking. Surratt had been Carolina's quarterback, comes over, and so Asante can't see the field his first 2 years, basically. But played in all 13 games his freshman season, played in all 12 games his sophomore season, because the defensive coaches want him on the field. Right. And then finally, the bowl game, the Tar Heels have a great year his sophomore season, make it to the Orange Bowl. Chaz Surratt opts out to prepare for the NFL draft. What happens? Asante goes off. Career high 10 tackles, leads the team. It's a whole thing. And now there's all these expectations coming into last season.
And that was against Texas A&M, right? SEC.
Yes, correct. Exactly. And so there's going to be a lot of parallel and crossover for Auburn fans who have seen that.
Sure.
Now, go ahead.
No, keep going, man.
Carolina got blitzed in that game. It was like 41-27. Part of it is because Michael Carter opted out, now New York Jet. Javonte Williams opted out. All these guys are done for that game, including, as I said, Surratt, which gave Asante this opportunity. And so what that meant for this past season that you referenced off the top there is that Asante comes into the 2021 season, and it's him, and it's Jeremiah Gemmel, who's another Carolina linebacker that just finished off. Like, those are the guys coming in to last season in the linebacking core. In fact, I had one of my Sports Illustrated colleagues wrote an article. I wrote the title down so I could say it. How North Carolina replaces Chaz Surratt. Meet Eugene Asante, right? And so, that's the level we're talking about here. So everything you read, everything you saw, spring practice, all of that coming into last season, it's Eugene Asante, it's Jeremiah Gemmel. Those are the dudes. To hear Jay Bateman talk about it, who's Carolina's defensive coordinator up until recently, just here's some phrases he would use in talking about Asante. We've got really athletic, can run, great in coverage, extra run defender. Essentially, everything Chaz Surratt could do, Asante could do. And so that was why the expectations were so high. And so Coach Bateman talked about his confidence, his excitement coming into that season, started the first 4 games of 2021, and then all of a sudden there's this switch. Asante ended up losing his starting job to Cedric Gray, who's a sophomore. Last year was Asante's junior year. Right. And then we heard nothing from Asante at that point. So basically, to me, that was much more about Cedric Gray, this sophomore that came up for the Tar Heels, rather than Asante's inabilities. Jay Bateman runs this very confusing defensive scheme. We don't need to bother getting into it. And it's not about Gray's inability or lack of ability to understand scheme and play. It's just, I think Cedric Gray fit better into that specific scheme and role and position. And then at that point, there's just not room for Asante anymore.
So when that happened, Isaac, was that a talking point throughout the season of where is Eugene Asante, or was it
100%?
Like, okay, got it.
Because and I think a lot of that was specifically because of all the expectations you had coming in.
Sure.
Of like the defensive coordinators talking about him, all the media is talking about him. That is the expectation, is he's one of the two dudes in this like 4-2-5, 3-3-5 hybrid kind of thing that's going on.
Sure.
And so that becomes a huge talking point. And, you know, so, like, sometimes it takes a while to pick up on that. Like, somebody's missing for a game or less active, and it's like, oh, that's weird. I wonder what's going on. And then once you've got a little bit more of a sample size, you really start asking the questions. So, yeah, absolutely, it's a talking point last year.
Yeah, I mean, early in spring right now, Auburn's star linebacker, Owen Papo, is not currently practicing. He's just recovering from an injury that he had. But Eugene is rotating in with the two guys that have kind of stepped up right now. Cam Riley's one of them, this massive 6'4" player that's just transformed his body over the last 6 months. And then Wesley Steiner, who's this younger, athletic guy that can kind of move really, really well. And then Eugene's kind of switching in with those guys. And so, I mean, all of those things that you just said that, you know, the former North Carolina DC said, and the one that stuck out to me the most was good in pass coverage. Yeah. Because, I mean, so many times we see above average college linebackers, they're good at everything except, man, if you put them, if you put them, you know, more than 10 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, they just look lost out there. And so that's something that I think Auburn really, really needs this year. Can Asante step in and do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say he would. Like I talked about Jay Bateman's defense. A big thing is that he then eventually got fired like early January, like January 7th, I think was the actual date. Asante had already announced his transfer early December, like December 2nd. And then, so I think if they had fired him sooner and hired Gene Chizik sooner, like that defense to me makes a lot more sense for a player like Eugene Asante, who can drop back into coverage, can fly around the field a little bit, you know, like maybe a little bit of Sam linebacker in him. You might, you know what I mean? Like you've got some of that capability of like the nickelback linebacker hybrid. And so with that Gene Chizik style of see ball, hit ball, that blends into what Asante can do. And so if for the Tigers, if it's going to be more of a thing of like, hey, we need you to drop back into coverage, I think that's where he's going to find some ability to find some playing time, find his way onto the field.
Fun fact about Gene Chizik. I don't know if you know this.
Bring it.
He coached Cam Newton and won a national championship at Auburn. I just think it's important that we mention that. Got pictures of Cam right here. So
yes,
I think it's just important that I mention that.
Wow, what a year.
Well, I was about to wrap it up. Or were you about to say something else?
No, that was one of the craziest college football single season performances I've ever seen in my life.
There you go. You're winning folks back that you just bashed at the beginning of the segment. So I think that's awesome.
Listen, how about this? I grew up in Atlanta as a Georgia Tech fan. I hated the Bulldogs. I hated the Crimson Tide. My dad helped run a college ministry at Auburn, and so we were over there on campus a lot.
Sure.
Big Tigers fan. War Eagle, let's go.
There we go. And go Braves. I think that's important as well. Go Braves. Isaac, how can people find you, hear you, support you, all that good stuff, bud?
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Isaac Shade. 1 S, 2 A's in Isaac, and Shade has a C in it. It's dumb, I know. Also, as Zach said, I'm the host of Locked on Tar Heels. I also write for Sports Illustrated's North Carolina site, and so you can find me there or cheering on the Braves. We're actually getting baseball. Freddie Freeman, I don't know.
Yeah,
what's up?
It's okay. It's all right. Isaac, thank you, bud.
Yes, Eugene Asante, I love him. I want him to do well for Auburn, and so I think hopefully he'll be a great fit there for the Tigers.